This content is contributed by the Buddha Activity Association of Australia. Welcome to our program. Today, we're going to explore in depth the transcript of a dialogue between the master and his disciple. This material is truly fascinating to read. It starts from a very practical point, a specific cultivation method known as the mandala altar. Yes, but as the conversation unfolds, it's like peeling an onion, delving deeper layer by layer. Eventually, it reaches some very fundamental Buddhist concepts. Exactly. I think the most captivating part of this dialogue is how the master constantly pulls the disciple's attention away from external, visible forms and back to the most fundamental realizations of the heart. So our task today is to follow the logic of this dialogue and take a journey from the outside in. First, we will look at how external rituals and internal power are actually connected. Then, we will explore a concept everyone has likely heard of. Some may have oversimplified, giving rise to bodhicitta. Yes, many people have misconceptions about this. Finally, and perhaps the most subversive part, is a reinterpretation of the Chinese character, or, believe me, after hearing this, you may never look at this word the same way again. This actually raises a question that we can reflect on at any time in our own knowledge system. What things are merely information we know, and what are the realizations that have truly and deeply changed us, becoming a part of who we are? The difference between the two is like night and day, and this is precisely the core of what we are exploring today. Alright, the starting point of this exploration is quite interesting. It doesn't begin with profound theories, but with a very practical, almost miraculous story. The one about Master Zhuan praying for snow. Yes, the story of Master Zhuan's successful prayer for snow. The disciple asked how this was actually accomplished. To his surprise, the master's answer didn't mention supernatural powers at all. Instead, he pointed to a keyword, the mandala. Yes, this answer is very enlightening. Most people might expect to hear, oh, it was the blessing of Buddha's power. Exactly. So the master focused directly on the process. He said that what you see disciples building a mandala outside as an external ritual. The true purpose of this ritual is to use every concrete, repetitive, and focused action to simultaneously construct an equally solid, clear, and stable thought within one's own mind. So the external construction is actually a visualization of the internal building process. Exactly, a mirror image. For every brick you move, a brick is also laid in the mandala of conviction within your heart. This reminds me of another story Milarepa building houses. Yes, his Guru Mapa also had him building houses, repeatedly building them up and tearing them down. These sound similar, but are they the same thing? That is a great question. They seem similar, but the master points out a key distinction in the dialogue. When Mapa had Milarepa repeat the grueling labor, his core purpose was destruction. Destruction is to destroy the negative karma he had created from practicing sorcery in the past. It was an extremely profound form of repentance. In contrast, the purpose of Master Zhuan building the mandala was establishment. Establishing a thought? Yes, establishing a powerful and single-pointed intent to bring a certain result to fruition. So the key really isn't about what you are doing externally, but rather what the underlying intention is behind your actions. I say, one is for subtraction, and the other is for addition. However, the disciples in the dialogue seem to view the mandala, mantras, and the equilibrium of meditative concentration and wisdom as options in some kind of fast-track course. Yes, they think these are the fastest methods. This seems a bit strange. Those three sound like they are on very different levels. The disciples' confusion is normal, but the master's answer is that these three are essentially all the same. The equilibrium of meditative concentration and wisdom. We can understand it simply. Concentration is the stability and focus of belief. Wisdom is clear insight and understanding. These three methods are only different in their external forms, in the level of wisdom they rely upon. How so? For example, with mantras. The master says even if a person doesn't understand the meaning behind the mantra at all, as long as they can recite it with extreme focus, the powerful concentration alone can produce an effect. But if they also understand the underlying principles, meaning they have wisdom, the effect will be even more powerful and rapid. Understand, this points to a core principle. The effectiveness of any spiritual practice depends directly on how deep our understanding of its underlying principles is, that is, how deep our wisdom is. In that sense, it's a bit like boiling water. It's about maintaining a constant state of practice, like fishing for 3 days and drying the net for 2, being inconsistent. Exactly, with such inconsistency, you might eventually get the water to boil, but no one knows how long it will take. But the so-called equilibrium of concentration and wisdom is like understanding the principles of wisdom and then continuously applying heat to the water concentration without interruption. The water will only get hotter until it finally boils, so it becomes a predictable process. Exactly, that's why the Buddha could prophesy for those practitioners who were consistent and understood how to apply themselves, telling them clearly how much longer it would take to achieve enlightenment, because it becomes a predictable physical process rather than a gamble full of variables. This also reveals the power of focus and consistency. True, after talking about this, I thought we would move on to more advanced spiritual practices, but the dialogue suddenly shifts to a concept we are all familiar with: rebirth in the Pure Land. I always thought this was the ultimate shortcut in Buddhism, but the description in the dialogue makes it sound like nothing of the sort. Indeed, this can be seen as a redefinition of the concept of a shortcut. The master mentions, what is the benefit of being reborn in Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land? It lies in being a purely positive environment. The negative habits and seeds from your past have no soil to sprout there. They will be soaked to death within the lotus flower. That sounds wonderful, like an absolutely safe greenhouse, where bad habits can be completely uprooted. Yes, but that's only the first half of the story. There's a second half. The second half is that the time spent soaking in the lotus might be very, very long. And the master also mentions a key point. Even when you finally emerge from the lotus, you won't see Amitabha Buddha himself. Wait, you don't see the Buddha. Then what do you go there for? You have to report to Guanyin Bodhisattva first. The master describes it like being a new student who has to go to the dean of students for orientation. Hurrah! They even have military training basic drills. Indeed, and the core goal of this training is only one thing: to have you truly give rise to bodhicitta. According to the Amitayurjana Sutra, for those of the lower grade of rebirth, it might take as long as 12 great kalpas just to give rise to this mind. 12 great kalpas. Wait a second. I remember the time unit kalpa isn't the usual hundreds or thousands of years we imagine. A great kalpa seems to describe the entire cycle of a universe from birth to destruction. Is that the concept? Your understanding is exactly right. The length of a great kalpa is beyond what astronomical numbers can describe. So 12 great kalpas means spending the time of 12 universes being born and destroyed just to give rise to one single thought. That is astonishing. What exactly is bodhicitta? Why is it so difficult that even with Guanyin Bodhisattva as a teacher, it takes so long? Right, the disciples in the dialogue also felt they had given rise to bodhicitta, but they were immediately corrected by the master. This is one of the most core parts of the entire dialogue. The master directly shatters our common misunderstanding of giving rise to bodhicitta. It is absolutely not a vague, emotional, good intention. It's not a slogan like "I want to be a good person" or "I want to help everyone." Then what is it exactly? It is an extremely clear, concrete goal based on profound wisdom. The master quotes the scripture, "Bodhicitta arises from great compassion," and then breaks it down into a very rational operational process. First, your goal is to prove the suffering of all sentient beings. Okay, to achieve that, you must first know what suffering is. You have to define the problem first. Exactly. Second, to completely understand what suffering is, you cannot rely solely on sympathy. You must research, study, and understand exhausting all knowledge about the root causes and forms of suffering. The process of researching and thoroughly understanding this is called bodhi, which is awakening. Third, just understanding is not enough. You must also possess effective methods and abilities to actually solve these problems. That is skillful means, apaya. This explanation completely transforms giving rise to bodhicitta from an emotional slogan into a rational process, almost like academic research. Precisely, it requires you not only to have compassion, but also knowledge and methodology. The threshold is suddenly set very high. Very high. The master gives a very relatable example. How much suffering does something like sugar cause for sentient beings? obesity, diabetes, tooth decay, mood swings, a lot. Right, if you want to solve the suffering caused by sugar, we need to awaken to all the underlying knowledge of physiology, psychology, sociology, and more. And the suffering of sentient beings is infinite and boundless. This means we need to possess all wisdom to fulfill this mind of I want to prove the suffering of all beings. I see. That's why the master asked the disciple, you don't even know what the 32 marks of a Buddha are yet. How can you say you've given rise to the mind to achieve Buddhahood? Behind this is an extreme clarity and respect for the goal. True, if one is completely ignorant of the specific content of the goal, then the so-called giving rise to the mind is just empty words. After understanding this, the final part of the dialogue is like a brilliant piece of intellectual archaeology. Truly, it started with the disciples discussing a concept from the Avatamsaka Sutra, mentioning the need to give rise to respect, accordance, and recognition, approval, toward good roots. The master seized on those two words, recognition, aranka. From there, he went deep and completely overturned our understanding of the character, ara. Yes, usually, when we say ara, what comes to mind is patience, endurance, or bearing a heavy burden. They all carry a sense of suppression or confrontation. But the master said this completely misses the original meaning of the character. Right, what he did next was like a work of linguistic detective work, taking the character apart and showing us its origins. The master practically put the character, ara, under a microscope. Look at the structure of the character itself. It's very visual. The bottom is a heart, and the top is a blade upon the heart. Exactly, this image isn't telling you to suppress or endure. Instead, it's like a craftsman holding a carving knife, focused on engraving the most important realization deeply into your heart. Stroke by stroke, engrave on the heart. It is an active, profound process of construction. So when the ancient dictionary Shuo Wenjisi explains Aran as ability, it means this profound engraving is the fundamental source of attaining an ability. Exactly, the realization you engrave will become incredibly powerful. Ancient texts also say it means strength. It becomes your underlying operating system for thought and behavior, influencing your entire life. This also explains why heart-engraved and burnished experiences are so hard to forget, whether it's a beautiful first love or a massive trauma. At the same time, it explains why bad habits are so hard to change, because they have already been deeply engraved into our nervous system through countless repetitions. That is exactly it. This makes it very interesting. So the mechanism of aura itself is neutral. Whatever you engrave into it is what gives you that specific ability. Precisely, the master cited examples from ancient texts to illustrate this point. For instance, to be at peace with unkindness is called aura. This doesn't mean the person is enduring a state of unkindness. It's engraved in their heart, so they can do bad things with a clear conscience and zero hesitation. Conversely, the state of blue use mutual recognition, she honor and to govern a country. This doesn't mean blue sought out people who were good at enduring to be prime ministers. It meant finding sages who had a profound and thorough understanding of all things, those with the wisdom of Ara, and to lead the nation. Everything connects now. So when Buddha Sutras mention various types of Ara, such as the forbearance of the non-arising of dharmas, it's not asking us to endure the state of non-arising. Instead, it's asking us, through profound study and realization, to ultimately, completely, and fully recognize and accept the universal reality that all dharmas are unproduced, until this realization becomes a natural part of your instinct. Like breathing, you summarize it perfectly. This is the shift from passive endurance to active recognition. Therefore, looking back at that line from the Avatamsaka Sutra, give rise to respect, accordance, and recognition, renka. The first step of spiritual practice is to establish this profound, heart-engraved realization. First, you must have aura, right? When you have reached this profound aura and recognition toward a virtuous principle, and you approve it from the bottom of your heart, then the subsequent respect and accordance, meaning naturally following it into action, become matters of course. This is the most solid foundation of spiritual practice. Following this dialogue today, we have truly traveled through a marvelous journey, from the external mandala to the seemingly distant Pure Land. to the rediscovery of a single Chinese character. Ultimately, they all point to the same core, internal transformation. And the key to this transformation is not blind persistence, let alone painful endurance. It is to establish a clear, profound, and unshakable correct realization, as if carved by a blade. The most brilliant part of this material is how it reveals the different levels of understanding. There is a type of understanding that stays at I know, like when we finish reading an article. But the real and the master speaks of is the path to a deeper level of understanding, the realm of I have become. Yes, that knowledge is no longer something external to you. It has merged with you as one. So, before this deep exploration ends, we want to leave you with a question to take back and think about slowly. Perhaps this can allow us to reflect in our own knowledge system and values. Which beliefs are actually just stickers we say with our mouths, which can be peeled off at any time, and which ones have we truly used time and focus to engrave into the depths of our hearts, stroke by stroke. More importantly, when the true pressures of life arrive, which one is presiding over our reactions? Would you like me to help you format this into a script or a formal document?